Alright, and hello and welcome everybody to Problem Solver Politics once again. Cardin is still on vacation, so once again it'll be just me tonight. But tonight we have we have one topic I want to talk about, but a couple stories I want to talk about that are, I'm trying to think of it. I guess bizarre is the word for it. Understandable, but very, very bizarre. So, I guess let's just jump right into it. Every day for the past, 7 days since Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested. It's indeed the Ghislaine Maxwell, the one that is the Ghislaine, however you pronounce it, the one that would be the alleged accomplice of one Jeffrey Epstein. So, a lot of stories have been coming out. Every day when I'm looking up for just news about anything, I have to pass by the latest Snopes fact check of the latest. I don't even know if you can call these conspiracy theories. I don't know what you call them. But the latest Ghislaine Maxwell story that has to get Snopes fact-checked. This one, I'm going to save that one. So let's start off with this one first. I remember, how many of you guys can read this headline and be like, oh, that's obviously not true, right? However, Snopes fact-checked this one. Is James Maxwell Trump the son of Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump? This birth certificate's been going around the internet. I believe they have it right here. Is it him? Right here, the claim is the birth certificate for James Maxwell Trump shows that he's the biological son of Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump. So, surprisingly, Snopes found this to not be true. And this was found to not be a real birth certificate. However, this was a story that was going around, and some people were talking about enough for Snopes to fact-check it, I guess. They could be fact-checking any random claim, but there's a couple other ones I've been seeing a lot more. This one was my favorite. Right when I read the headline, because what's crazy to me is I'm just on my regular news aggregating websites, and I'm going through headlines, and all of a sudden something jump out at me, like, did Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump have a son together? Probably no, right? The answer to that's probably no idea. And, well, turns out, yeah, probably not. But that's just one of them. There's a couple more I want to get into. Especially the one today. The one today is a doozy that I saw going around. This one, another one, I love this one. Is Dr. Fauci married to Ghislaine Maxwell's sister? They mention here in the headline here that sharing a first name is not the same as sharing an identity. What does that mean? Let's get into this. So the claim that Dr. Anthony Fauci is married to Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, they found to be false. Why was it found to be false? So, sucks. I have to say, it sucks to be Deanna Lorraine running for Congress when you publish. Like, this is one of those things where, like, how do I put this? You're not that smart. It probably just isn't true. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, I just discovered that Anthony Fauci's married to Ghislaine Maxwell's sister. It's like, really? Nobody noticed that until you came around with your big brain and put two and two together. Anyway, we'll go to the logic here. It's pretty hilarious. So, basically, is that Fauci's wife was a Christine Grady, and one of Maxwell's sister, or Ghislaine's sister, is a Christine Maxwell. Sure, there was more, but it definitely wasn't true that Anthony Fauci was married to Ghislaine Maxwell's sister. I love that one. No, like, it's just one of those things, and if anyone heard this, they fell for themselves, no offense, but it's like, how obviously absurd is that? Like, how could that be true? What? Dr. Fauci married Ghislaine Maxwell's sister and nobody knew? No one ever brought it up? People have been talking about Ghislaine Maxwell for a few years now. I will say, it's not as long as Epstein. I mean, Epstein got off on his first controversial plea deal, I think in 2007-ish? And Ghislaine Maxwell was walking around pretty much a free person publicly until 2015, something like that. Anyways, that was cool. Now we'll get to the two big ones. This one was hilarious to me. Some of you guys might have seen this one. So. And this one, this was the one I read. No, this was the second one I read today that said, you know what, we'll talk about this today. Was Ghislaine Maxwell photographed with John Benet Ramsey? Now, Ghislaine Maxwell went through one of our streams and she got arrested. Was photographed with damn near everyone. Probably somebody watching the stream, maybe even me. It's probably a picture of us with Ghislaine Maxwell out there somewhere. Everyone's somehow gotten a picture with her. However, This one I love. So, what's the picture, right? Is it a picture of like Ghislaine Maxwell next to JonBenet Ramsey? They say it's unproven, so it's not false. And this is the picture. All right, here we go. If you missed her, that's her. That's Mrs. Maxwell right there. I guess open and shut case, right? That's definitely her. Wow, Ghislaine Maxwell is in the background of a photo. Definitely. I would have to say, you know what? That would be a crazy coincidence. I guess, it's a woman with shorter dark hair. It does kind of look a little like her. Her nose looks a little bit bigger than hers, I think. I don't know about the age. I don't know what she looked like when this picture was taken, 1996. As a matter of fact, I think I do know it took at 1996 and it wasn't like this. But again, it was just this endless barrage of Snopes fact checks on these stories. And I'm like, what the? Now, this one, actually, there was an article in the Daily Dot about this today. That people think Ghislaine Maxwell is in the background of this JonBenet Ramsey photo. Seems kind of absurd to me. And then how about this? Somebody put this around. Apparently, any woman with short dark hair is going to be, who had committed the crime, is now Ghislaine Maxwell. So this one came up. This was a real person who did, or was a person of interest in a kidnapping. But according to the Daily Dot, she was identified in 2009 as not Ghislaine Maxwell. So what do you know? That was not Ghislaine Maxwell either. But now here's the doozy of a one today. This was the one today that I read. I mean, not that I couldn't believe that I was reading it. I can kind of believe any Ghislaine Maxwell conspiracy, but this one made me laugh a bit. So let's see if I can pull this up a little bit. There we go. It's a little easier to read. This is from the Daily Mail. Did Ghislaine Maxwell secretly... Oh my God. Let me get rid of this. These it is hard to read this website because the advertisements. I'll give you one second. I have to actually read. I have to reload this page. You can't read it because the advertisements are going so crazy. So kind of lessens the impact of it, I believe. But either way, here we go. Did Ghislaine Maxwell secretly run one of the most powerful Reddit accounts in history? Conspiracy theory suggests Epstein's pimp, in quotes. That's one way of describing her. Oh my God, I get revenge of the ads. Here we go. Anyway. Theory suggests that the woman posted about everything from Israel. Wow, that's... When you get into what this person does on the website, you'll be like, really, Israel? World news? You mentioned Israel? That's crazy. Now, the legalization of things that are illegal, that one's interesting. For 14 years, until the thread fell silent upon her arrest. So hundreds of users have pointed out that this is crazy. It's one of the reasons why, despite reading some of the articles and liking them in Daily Mail, I have to find a new browser or something. It's insane, man. This is one of the most aggressively advertised websites that isn't actually just spam that I ever try to get. So I apologize. But I want to go through the bullet points here because I think they leave off a pretty interesting one. I believe they do. Here we go. So hundreds of users have pointed out that the user, Maxwell Hill, has fallen silent since Maxwell's July 2nd arrest on sex trafficking charges related to Jeffrey Epstein. YouTuber Joe Leonard, shout out to YouTube, shared the unproven theory on Twitter Wednesday. There's no definitive proof that the accounts are run by Ghislaine, but a Reddit post on the subject also has been liked more than 8,000 times. Wow. 8,000, man. That's, it's a decent number, I guess. Sorry, just some of these stories that I think get covered in news. I guess I'm not talking about one of these. I'm trying to talk about how ridiculous all of them are. And we'll get to one after this that's kind of serious and not so ridiculous. But people write articles about this stuff. How many Snopes fact checks I just pulled up? 3, I think, about just nonsense. Was Ghislaine Maxwell the son with Donald Trump that nobody knew about? Now I will say she seemed to know basically everybody who lived in New York City for about 20, 30 years. But again, that'd be a bombshell, so to speak, if it was real. But let's get back to this one. This is hilarious. So they go on to mention that basically Maxwell's in the name and it hasn't posted since she got arrested, which is also a week, Not that long. Hey, if it was like this for 4 years, because they go on to mention this account's been posting for 14 years straight. Fairly regularly. I wonder if anyone's bothered to look to see if there ever was a roughly 7 to 10 day break in that 14-year span. Maybe. I'd have to venture to bet maybe, right? Probably. But they mentioned a bunch of other stuff in here about, and then they get to all the anecdotal evidence, like, oh, people pointed out, they're saying that, look, but I want to get to one thing, I want to make sure I include this before I get too far. And, let me see if I can find it, and that is where they mention that people have came out and said, sorry, I'm trying to pull it up right here. Here we go. Not every Reddit user is convinced. One at Sharon said, Maxwell Hill is a Malaysian man. Please stop this nonsense. I moderate Our World News, which is one of the parts of the website they frequented. Maxwell Hill is literally the name of a place in Malaysia. It is not a reference to his name. Now, I think it's interesting that's all they include in this entire article. Somebody coming out and explicitly saying, that is not, no, stop it. So this is a man from Malaysia. I know them. We've worked together on this. Because they go on to mention something else, too. And that was that this user they pointed out was one of the... There's an article. I think they have quotes from an article. That this story I had pulled out. They have quotes from an article going back to 2011 talking about the success of the account. Here we go. In 2011, Gizmodo wrote that Maxwell Hill isn't just trying to be mysterious. He or she is trying to be successful. Maxwell Hill's ascent to power was deliberate and skillful. The million karma points were a goal, not an accident. So who knows? Maybe. All I know is that Ghislaine Maxwell suddenly finds herself as the, I guess mastermind of a whole lot of stuff. She's gonna find out, and then we'll get to one more thing about why. I try not to skip over the. I guess I have a weird way of speaking, but like how did Ghislaine, like, because we have to either way. I'm not gonna get too far into it. But this is a story that's a little bit less, not as funny, but worrisome. So, basically, the government came out and said that they're worried that Ghislaine Maxwell is going to die, perhaps by killing herself. So let's get into what it actually is. Ghislaine Maxwell's bed sheets and clothes have been taken by feds to prevent a early death, I guess you could say. Alleged Jeffrey Epstein fixer. She's, like I said, she's a pimp, she's a fixer, she's a madame, she's an accomplice, she's an ex-girlfriend. She's one of the, why don't they just put alleged Reddit super user, Ghislaine Maxwell? Has been forced to wear paper clothes and sleep on a bare mattress so she won't hang herself with them like Epstein, according to a report. Now, that is true. If you guys remember, Epstein was found hanging from a bed sheet. They believe that is how his body got into the position they discovered it in. Again, I still don't think I can say for certain beyond Epstein was found dead in his cell, right? Either way, though, it's very interesting that basically the government just came out and volunteered this information. They basically just came out and said, yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell, we're worried for her life. She's been put on special watch. I mean, these are apparently stricter protocols than Jeffrey Epstein himself had. And that's it. This article's not very long from New York Post, but a lot of the news and stuff isn't very long at all. It's just that's the story. They came out and said that. According to a Metropolitan Detention Center spokesman, I guess, told the Associated Press. Oh, sorry, not that. Federal authorities outside the Bureau of Prisons have been assigned to ensure Maxwell does not kill herself and is not harmed by other inmates while she is jailed, a source told the Associated Press. So someone from the government went to the Associated Press, basically the media, and said, we have put special precautions around her so she can't kill herself, basically. Weird. I'll tell you what, I wonder what happens if now... There's a lot of ways of looking at it, right? There's the way of looking at it just in the way of like, hey, maybe Jeffrey Epstein was more whatever, right? Let's say the official narrative on him was correct, right? Maybe the government's just trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. They're just trying to say, look, we don't want it to happen again. I had been reading stories that she had been willing to work with the authorities. I don't know why suddenly that changed. But it has been. Oh, sorry. I just happened to notice another story about her. Apparently, an ex-Reddit CEO tweeted that she knew about Ghislaine Maxwell allegations in 2011. Which, I have to imagine if people knew that she was Jeffrey Epstein's longtime girlfriend, it's been pretty hard not to put two and two together. But it has been for the last, I think she was arrested the 2nd, so that would be a week, it'd be 7 days. a barrage of stories. Now, unfortunately, hopefully, this is as bad as it gets along these ends. There's another story I didn't bring up because it's just literally satire. But there's a satirical article going around right now claiming that she has coronavirus. Now, that has been, I believe, proven to be satire, and people are just kind of falling for it and not seeing it's a joke. But I don't know. Well, what was, let me know, chat. What was your favorite? Or tell me what I missed. What are the best or the most, all right, let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if these are all true stories. If all of them are real. Ghislaine actually was photographed with JonBenet Ramsey for whatever reason, other than just to juxtapose her and more awful things. But yeah, it's interesting to see, I guess a good way of putting it, and I guess what I was trying to explain perhaps a little bit interestingly. But people have clearly, I think the way the media has been covering it, the way average people talk about it, people clearly have reacted to what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. I remember Epstein conspiracies, but Epstein probably was associated with more people. There was more Epstein conspiracies, right? But with Ghislaine Maxwell, it felt like the second, and there was jokes as soon as Epstein got arrested. People were like, oh, he's going to kill himself. But then he did. Or he was found dead, right? And that is when I think a lot of people were like, whoa, what the, everyone said it, but who thinks it's going to happen? So now people are willing to believe almost anything, I think, with Ghislaine Maxwell. Because they're like, hey, what the hell, maybe? She'll probably just be found dead in a few days and swept under the rug anyway, so who cares? But I feel like you can kind of see it. It's a different tone. Like, people really do feel like anything's possible, I guess. And I guess also it speaks to 2020, right? Like, truly. Truly. Anything's possible. I'm trying to say. 2020. And that's what people feel, right? People feel like they can believe anything is possible. Maybe Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump did have a kid together. Who knows? Now, I think now here's the other thing, too, though. Some conspiracies are pushed by people in the media, and maybe that's the wrong way of phrasing it. But here's the thing. If there's a story, right, and you're writing an article or making a YouTube video even, I actually I don't go out of my way, but I try to notice when I'm doing this and rein it in if I can, right? But if you want people to find your video, your article, your tweet, whatever, best way to do it is hear a story and then say, hold on a minute. You're telling me there's a story with Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump and like secret or hidden and revealed or breaking? I can put in my headline, breaking, Ghislaine Maxwell may have had a child with Donald Trump. That's great. People will click on that. People will notice that. They'll find that. It'll help you. So I think there's definitely this motivation always to find those stories too. People in the media will have stories given to them and they'll kind of be like, it's interesting, but like, who's going to even know to look for that? Then they'll hear a story and say, wait a minute, walk that back. Did you just say X, Y, and Z? Bang. Can I put JonBenet Ramsey and Ghislaine Maxwell on a headline? Don't care. We'll just fact check it. I mean, Snopes is literally a fact checker, right? But there's the articles that do that. I'm not going to name any other places that literally just made sure they could cram those two names together in a headline. Especially, this was spurred because I believe recently they ran A&E ran like a thing on JonBenet Ramsey. So she's probably doing well in the search results. People are like, okay, JonBenet Ramsey, we got JonBenet Ramsey stories because that's the business end of it. But the story's just been hilarious. Either way, my melanated scope, $5 super chat, said Supreme Court said half of Oklahoma is native land in a shady case dealing with allegations of sexual assault. Have you heard of this? Thoughts? Heard a little bit about it. I haven't read a whole bunch on it, but how it was described to me was that basically the U.S. government over the last 100 years basically went back on a treaty, and as a result, the Supreme Court ruled that indeed the federal government doesn't have jurisdiction over about roughly half of Oklahoma. I believe the story. And yeah, it's really weird. It sounds to me like one of the main objections I do have with the courts is that that shouldn't be a decision for the courts. Like, if people want to, like, or, like, maybe the decision should go to the courts, sorry, but it shouldn't be like the Supreme Court's like, you know what? Half Oklahoma, just like, it should just have a different, jurisdictions. Just whatever, done. We set it forth anyways. It just feels weird. It feels like that's the kind of thing that maybe should be done. I understand a Supreme Court case is a lot of thought, right? But it just feels weird, and it does feel like kind of shady. It's like, wait, what? Why would they do that? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to do it that way. Maybe, right? And maybe I'm crazy, right? But maybe it would have made sense for the Supreme Court to be like, okay, we hear that argument, but like, we won't rule in this case to just change that, but maybe get the motion started more in that sense. Maybe it had been more. So I'm not gonna. I haven't researched it a ton, but it just came across as really weird. It comes across as a really weird decision. It feels like the kind of thing the Supreme Court should not be able to do. To just decide that, you know what? Yeah, we don't really have federal control or jurisdiction over, like, just part of a state. Because here's the thing, right? People who live in that state should be able to sue the federal government for fraud then. They essentially have been being I don't understand how the government wasn't defrauding everybody that was living there, paying them taxes under the understanding that they were under the jurisdiction of the federal government. That's why I paid them, you know what I mean? It feels like they could be sued by anyone who lived there for that. Just random people can be like, what the hell? So I was basically paying someone, the wrong person, the whole time, and you agree? Like, that's crap. Why was that? Why were you defrauding me, basically? So one of the reasons why it feels, and I'm not a lawyer, maybe it doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense to me. Like, I don't say it makes sense, but you see what I mean? Like, it feels like if it is the way people are describing it, that they just gave half Oklahoma away, that gotta be way too quick and way too just snap of a finger. It's not gonna work. There's gonna be just so many random roadblocks and issues they keep running into. Of like, well, what the hell about this? What the hell about that? Like, maybe they should have thought this out more and like implemented it. Like, anything should be implemented slowly. Because if you don't implement things kind of slowly and roll it out, you just be like, wish you would have thought of that. If only we would have known. This was just going to, like, be a huge pain in the ass, a big roadblock, and really jam things up. Well, too bad we already rolled it out entirely, so it's jamming everything up. Like, whenever the government tries that, it never works. I think of, like, some of the obvious things, right? One of the more, like, an example. It's like an example, but still, whenever the government opens up a website, like, for the first 8 hours, it's just unusable. I mean, same with, like, when a video game launches, the first, like, 8 hours, they'll just server overload, no one can get on. But it's just funny, the government tries to... Actually, you know what's interesting? As a result, you want to hear a funny story? So, yes. Similar to, I believe, the Medicare for All website, this happened... Not Medicare for All, the Obamacare website, right? Or the Affordable Care Act, whatever they called it originally. I remember the drama and controversy around it. They always installed some on the website, it didn't work, but... that was part of it, but also, like, overload. When they launched the, the PPP, the Payroll Protection Plan website, overload didn't work. Now... This is a problem video games have been had to deal with for a while. Because you think, like, they're released online, right? They had to deal with one issue. A lot of digital media has to. All digital media, right? 9 p.m. Pacific is 12 a.m. Eastern the next morning, right? So things that would release Thursday morning come out Wednesday night on the West Coast. That's just kind of, helpful thing. Anyways, though. One of the problems that things like that would run into is, they'd turn their servers on, very similar to how the government turns these websites on. So many people would flood them immediately, they would crash. It'd be too much. They couldn't handle it. As a result, they now, generally speaking, will stagger out releases. Now, I get if you can't do like first come, first serve PPP loans and stagger out who has access, right? But still, that concept of just, if you just open things up at once, everything will happen at once and it will get ruined. So the way you prevent that, the way you prevent a 9 hours of downtime is to roll things out slowly, and then you can address things as they come up. I don't know. Just an example. But, it's just one of the things that's I thought was really interesting from what I heard about the about what was going on in Oklahoma. I'll try to look more into what's going on. Before I heard, people are trying to describe it as like Supreme Court made a ruling and now there's half of Oklahoma's gone. It's like there's going to be so many problems if that actually happens. It's just too fast. You can't do anything like that. can't just flip a switch and just be like, well, good thing that worked. Good thing we have such big brains up here in the Supreme Court. We didn't foresee anything that could have gone wrong, and nothing went wrong. Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's yeah. Anyway, sorry, I got off track there, for a second. But yeah, I mean, it's in general one of the reasons why, right? When the government tries to roll things out, you just get never works, man. Nothing ever works that way, unfortunately, right? Like, it'd be nice if they could just say, hey, you know what? We messed up. It's just been corrected. Been changed. Like, cool. That was easy. Here, let's see. That's a good. I'm gonna pull something up about that. We'll go through it and look through it a little bit more. That's interesting. Go through the New York Times opinion. Ooh, the New York Times. I'll actually add it to the titles. People have a better idea of what's going on. Let's see. How does the New York Times describe it, right? Let's see what the New York Times describes. Oh, let me put this up for you guys to see as well. A landmark Supreme Court ruling. You know what this kind of reminds me of, the way it had described to me as well? There's a movie from, I don't know, the 50s or 60s, probably 50s. It stars one of my favorite actors of the era, Mr. Vincent Price. It's called The Baron of Arizona. That's the name of the movie, The Baron of Arizona. The Baron of Arizona, based on a true story about a man named James Revis, I believe. This individual, James Revis, discovered that, and this was, I think this movie takes place in the mid-1800s, I think. Could be wrong, around then. Anyways, he discovered that in a peace treaty the Americans made with the Spanish, they agreed to honor any land grants the Spanish government, or, government, I guess, had granted. He thought this was stupid. He thought it was so stupid, he decided to hatch an elaborate scheme to forge a bunch of documents that would prove that a woman was actually granted a bunch of land, roughly the size of Arizona and a little bit bigger, and that she was the rightful heir to it because of Spanish. He did a bunch of nonsense, and actually at one point, as far as I know the real story goes, had the federal government of the United States offering to pay him a very large sum of money for the land that he almost proved he owned in Arizona. Now, according to the story as well, one of those classic stories, he was too arrogant, thought he would never get caught, refused to sell. Eventually, they proved he was a fraud, and I believe he went to jail. Anyway, the reason why I bring this up is I don't think that's what's happening necessarily in Oklahoma right now. And I don't think somebody is forging documents to get this to go. But it is interesting if this is what's happening and the Supreme Court is truly just saying, like, well, we do this now. Precedent set. What if somebody says, that's stupid, that's so stupid, I'm going to find a way to prove it's stupid and abuse it? I mean, like, you think of, like, the things people try to steal in this world, right? I mean, there's, like, jokes that, like, I'm trying to, like, anecdotes and stories of people trying to steal, like, literally free things, right? Like a bucket of, like, free little rubber duckies, and someone will just steal the whole bucket full of duckies and run off. For no reason. Like, people will try to steal almost anything. You think land is something they'll try to steal? When you can just do it by forging documents the government would recognize. Now, we'll get to the full story, and I'm guarantee you it's a story I probably can't cover in the stream because there's probably so much stuff going on with it. But it when I first heard the general premise of it, it reminded me so much of that story of what does happen if the government says it's going to start recognizing some grants of land or some treaties or some agreements to land that for the last 100 years it didn't. Again, I feel like anybody living on that land is basically being defrauded by the federal government for the 100 years then. All of it was a sham, right? Like, because now somebody else... Anyway, we'll go through it, but here's the article. Supreme Court on Thursday ruled that Much of eastern Oklahoma falls within an Indian reservation, a decision that could reshape the criminal justice system by preventing state authorities from prosecuting offenses that involve Native Americans. The 5-4 decision, potentially one of the most consequential legal victories for Native Americans in decades, could have far-reaching implications for the people who live across what the court affirmed was Indian country. The lands include much of Tulsa, Oklahoma's second biggest city. There we go. The case was steeped in the United States government's long history of brutal removals and broken treaties with indigenous tribes, and grappled with whether lands of the Muskogee Creek Nation had remained a reservation after Oklahoma became a state. Again, something that I think the people of Oklahoma should have had more say in than the Supreme Court just deciding. Here's a new map of Oklahoma. The Supreme Court on Thursday ruled that much of eastern Oklahoma falls within an Indian reservation. And you can see Tulsa, Oklahoma now is just in an Indian reservation. And something else very interesting here, you'll notice from this map. It appears to be on the border of the Cherokee and Muskogee Creek Nation. Now, I think they reference just in one. That's... Now, I have to imagine some of that already was reservation land. But you see, it's one thing. And I believe they go through and mention that essentially this was the land that originally was promised to be granted. And then what happened was it just wasn't. And the U.S. government built Tulsa, Oklahoma there. And it just wasn't. I mean, it was developed and the U.S. government charged people money to build things there and operate there under the understanding and agreement, I would say, that was the United States they were operating in, and now they rule that isn't true. Well, it was the United States, but it's actually an Indian reservation, which should be technically considered. You notice this Cherokee Nation, it doesn't say Cherokee, county. So I don't know why that's in there. Anyway, now this is the thing too. It's like they're talking about it because basically a criminal was convicted from a crime, and if I remember this correctly, this seems like one of those instances of somebody who was convicted of a crime 40 years ago for life and spent 40 years trying to find a way out of it, and they found one, and this was it. Let's see, I want to get into a little bit more, let's get into the actual case a bit here, and not just... Okay. I guess we'll have to just read through almost all of it. I want to just skip over all of the, I am sure that the representatives of the people who wanted this to happen, they probably have 50 quotes from going it's awesome and it's what we wanted to happen. But they mentioned that the court's decision means that indigenous people who commit crimes on the eastern Oklahoma reservation, which includes much of Tulsa, cannot be prosecuted by state or local law enforcement and must instead face justice in tribal or federal courts. Is that it, though? And is there only indigenous people? So, according to this, the U.S. government would be able to... Is it work that way now? If I go onto a reservation and commit a crime, is it up to the U.S. government to prosecute me or the reservation government? I don't know. Maybe it is the way it works. Either way, it feels like it'd be the kind of thing that maybe worked the way it did because half of Oklahoma didn't fall into it. But now perhaps it does. Now, experts in Indian law, let's actually go the whole thing. So earlier, the Justice Department raised concerns about how federal prosecutors would cope with a new onslaught of cases they'd be suddenly responsible for investigating. And lawyers were parsing whether the decision might affect taxes, adoption, or environmental regulations on the reservation land. Yeah. I mean, the obvious joke, right, is so when does Tulsa get the casino? But beyond that, it is weird. So what are things different? Are there different environmental laws, different laws around employment? What's the thing here? Now, experts in Indian law said the decision effects would be more muted. It would change little for non-natives who live in the 3 million acre swath of Oklahoma the court declared to be in the reservation. Not 1 inch of land changed hands today, said Jonadav Chaudhary, ambassador for the Creek Nation. All that happened was clarity was brought to potential prosecutions within Creek Nation. Now, here's the thing too. This is what one of the arguments is. If this is truly all that's happening, is basically like inside this area, if native peoples commit crimes, we want the native governments to prosecute them. If that's all they're asking, that's all that actually literally happens here, then it is a big nothing burger, right? But are people really freaking out that much over what? It just feels weird to me. If that's really all it is. Now, I will say, a lot of people died in England a long time ago because the church wanted to fight for its ability to prosecute members of its own. A little bit different, right? But you see, like, it has been something that has been a boiling point for a while. Where they might be like, look, if this is on our land, we want to prosecute our people who commit crimes. But it is kind of weird, right? Having people living in I wouldn't say American city, right? But like a non-tribal land city for the last 50, 60 years, building things, paying the federal government, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, people who commit crimes here now, some of them actually can't get prosecuted by us anymore. And I guess that burden would go on the state. But that was, so I think, now they're getting into more of the decision of why they did it. But if the New York Times, anyway, describes it that way. So basically, all that's changing is that people who commit crimes on these lands, it's supposed to be our land anyway, who are native people, will be charged by native courts, not federal courts. That doesn't, like I said, not enough hours in the day, unfortunately, for you to go through all of this. But it just is weird. It was a weird thing to come through like this. And no, I am not Mormon. Wasn't Elon Musk going to pick Tulsa for his new game? Maybe, yeah, exactly. Weird stuff, right? But yeah, it's a very interesting story. Anyway, Joshua Herr, Michael Guzman says you should be paid more. Thank you very much, Joshua, for the super chat. And thank you very much, Michael Guzman, I guess, as well. Oh, very interesting point brought up as well by my melanated scope, I believe, in reference to a super chat. It's very, actually, I love this idea. So they gave billions, I believe by they mean government, from Mount Rushmore. The tribes have refused to touch the money because then it becomes a legal transaction. I'm sure something similar will happen here. Yes, that actually is one of, and you know who fell for it? I mean, the government loves doing that, man. The government, they're really rich people that, not even like any government, any like monarchy, any whatever, right? Any ruling class, they know they can do it and they love doing it. They'll give you a bunch of money you never asked for. Because they know what people do, and they accept a bunch of money they didn't actually ask for. Or more than they asked for. Considerably more than they asked for. It's something you buy them, right? But like they know what it is. I look at it, as soon as this whole Black Lives Matter got like $1 billion pledged to it, I was like, that's the end of that, man. As soon as they start just throwing money at a problem, they really want it gone. And people realized, why throw money at things to deal with the problem? Just put a bunch of money in at the problem, and a lot of times they'll just go away. People will just take the money. They'll be happy. They'll accept it. So it's very smart. Yeah. Yeah, because this thing is like, hey, we bought this land from you. No, we didn't. It's like, well, we gave you a bunch of money and you spent it, so I don't know what you call that. We call it buying it. And that's always what happens, right? Hey, what the hell? You didn't do that thing you said you were going to do. Yeah, but we gave you all that money. So just spend the money? Yeah, well, that's why we gave you the money. That happens all the time, man. All the time. And most of the time, it's never even actually like verbalized, right? It just happens. It's just somebody gave you more than you asked for, and they just kind of went behind your back or did something they said they wouldn't do. And it's just kind of like, yeah, well, I mean, I guess, but they gave me all the money. I literally took the money. So either way, it's very. Whenever that happens, always do that. Never touch the money, because they're always gonna try. It's always someone trying to just buy you or bribe you. But yeah, ideally, the New York Times take on what's going on in Oklahoma is basically all that happens, though. I have to imagine the hyperbolic, they gave away half Oklahoma. I have to imagine that is not actually true. It just seems to me insane that the Supreme Court could and would do things like that. Just, well, there we go. Now, if it opens the door for further cases to be argued, that's one thing. It's probably, it's from the perspective of America, stupid and bad. If there was treaties that the government just trampled all over, but there is no way to really remedy it without it being like detrimental to the state, it makes no sense for the state to just start bringing it up as problems. Yeah, that was messed up that we did that. It's like, why would they do that? It's really weird. So I don't know. Maybe the courts are just operating against the best interest of the state for some reason. I guess it's possible. I just don't get it, right? It's like, it almost feels like stakeholders have a greater fiduciary responsibility. Or, you know, like when people have a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders and they run a company, it's like that's a stronger bond than the responsibility like people who work in our government have to like the like safety and the, not safety, but the strength of the state sometimes. Like people in the courts and the government can just be like, oh yeah, this is awful for the country as a whole, like the nation as a body, right? It's awful for it. But whatever, we're just doing it. Like But hey, we'll find out soon enough, right? I have to imagine that the government will Google Experian dataset. I don't have time for that. And some more interesting point here with Michael Guzman that the courts. Yeah, exactly. I thought the courts are getting stacked by conservatives. Isn't that the narrative? Trump stacked the courts. What's his name? Mitch McConnell stacking the courts. Doesn't seem like it, really. Especially if they did give away half Oklahoma. Holy cow. Conservatives just gave away half Oklahoma, I guess. I believe Judge or Justice Gorsuch, I can never pronounce his name. One of the first big appointees by Trump, if I remember correctly. I believe he ruled in favor of this, if I remember correctly. Basically, just like, well, the paper says, the paper says it was supposed to be that way. But it is a weird story. Definitely one of the weirder stories of today. I mean, in general, right? Like, how crazy is the news? It's like, did we give away half Oklahoma? Is Ghislaine Maxwell one of the biggest users on Reddit? We'll find the third one. It's got to be another crazy one, right? Oh, how about is Kanye West in the midst of a bipolar episode? I hope not, right? Like, that would suck for him. Suck for all the people. There's a really funny tweet going around where Elon Musk is like, I support you all the way. And when Kanye says he's going to run, and then an article comes out where it's like, Kanye West is anti-vaccine and anti-abortion. And Elon Musk is like, I didn't realize we disagreed on so much. Let's see. I was like, my birthday was pretty low key. I didn't do anything. Been weird. Normally what I would do for my birthday, like on my birthday or just before it or just after it, I'd go to a baseball game. I love baseball, but no baseball. Like, there's no really anything to do. Right? So over the next few days, I'm gonna go to add a few family dinners for the next few days, celebrate, and then I'm probably just gonna get out of town for a few days. But yeah, coronavirus sucks, man. It all sucks. So is Oklahoma a sovereign nation now? Interesting point. I don't believe so. No, not what I read. Not that Oklahoma's sovereign, that East Oklahoma's. But it does sound like the federal government might have some explaining to do to a lot of people who live in eastern Oklahoma. So yes, there is that. Sorry, guys. Normally I have more, news or articles or stuff pulled up, but just all the news is just so weird and stupid now. I go through it and it's all so tiring, It's also just so tiresome. Like, oh my God, more of this. More of that. Like, people will write 4 articles about a story before we even know what happened, and then, like, somebody will just finally write the article of, like, well, actually, now we know what happened. And then just no one cares. They moved on. It's like, who cares, right? Who cares? I guess at this point, I would vote for Kanye West. Well, why not, man? Why can't we what's write Harambe in again or something? Just crazy. Okay, so to recap what happened in Oklahoma a bit. It's still weird to me, but essentially this. Essentially, according to the New York Times, the Supreme Court ruled that much of eastern Oklahoma falls within an Indian reservation, a decision that could reshape the criminal justice system by preventing state authorities from prosecuting offenses there that involve Native Americans. So as far as I understand it, basically these parts of Oklahoma were originally supposed to be given to the various tribes and part of reservations. Now, over the last 100+ years, that didn't happen. And they built things like Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the area surrounding Tulsa in these areas. Now, this was started, I believe, because a criminal basically sued the state and said, hey, federal government can't prosecute me for the crimes I committed here because technically this is reservation land, according to the treaties. Now, the government had not abided by those, as far as I understand it, at least. So, what the Supreme Court ruled is that these are now, like, these always had been reservations, and now they'll, as far as I understand, let me know if I'm wrong, chat, if you guys know more, but from what I've got for this, I haven't read a bunch into it yet. I'm just kind of going through this article and a couple things I read in Twitter earlier, but essentially, the government said that these reservation lands we're now going to acknowledge as actually being reservation lands, where previously we didn't. Which is just, it's a bad idea, I would say, to rule something like that, because it's the wrong way to do it. There's a better way of doing it. Having the Supreme Court tell people in Oklahoma that things are changing because the Supreme Court decided, and you just leave if you want. It's just weird. It's not, people aren't gonna like it. They're not gonna be happy. I can't imagine that, like, the U.S. gonna be like, yeah, you know what? Actually, what the hell? We don't need any of this land. Give it all back, right? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It's not gonna happen, obviously. So, what's the point of it? Again, this is this is spurred to, like, because of, like, a couple, like, criminals who didn't want to be prosecuted by the federal government and prosecuted by the native governments. I mean, I'm sure there were some people that were fighting to have these areas recognized Oklahoma. I mean, recognized as the treaty lands, but, like, why would the court just open up all of these crazy questions if it, for I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I just think there's a better way of doing that, of handling it, where it isn't like a light switch gets flipped and it's like, well, you know what? Hell, yeah, maybe we should give parts back in Texas, parts of Arizona, parts of Nevada. Not New York or Washington. Not those places. But what others? Sounds dumb to me, but also it feels like something the media is overblowing. As far as some other people are like, here's what's crazy. The decision puts in doubt hundreds of state convictions of Native Americans, but that's obviously one thing. But this is what's more interesting. It could change the handling of prostitution. Sorry, not that. But lawyers were also examining whether it had broader implications for taxing, zoning, and other government functions. Which, yeah, I brought that up. It sounds like the U.S. government was committing fraud for anything they were charging that they didn't have the right to charge people money for that was going on in these areas. Why would the Supreme Court just rule that? Right? We have ruled that we were acting fraudulently for 100 years. Like, what? Now, they say many of the specifics will be determined by negotiations between state and federal authorities and 5 Native American tribes in Oklahoma. That was the other thing they'll like to do, too. You'll notice all 5 of them got it on it. I wonder why. I wonder if they feel like the negotiations will just never go anywhere because they won't agree. Not like in a disparaging way, but like, yeah, try to get 5 different groups of people to agree on something. Good luck. There's a famous little story of I believe it's in Jerusalem. There's a church in Jerusalem that, I I don't know the full story of it, but basically, it was a very holy site, and there was a lot of controversy over like who actually has control or influence over it. And within the various sects of Christianity, right? Like just the simple removal or addition of various things, it's a big deal. Like, hey, like we don't want someone getting in there and like editorializing basically with their perspective this church. So I think it was the Pope or whoever said, fine, all 5 or 6 of you guys control what happens here. Maybe it was even 8. Like a bunch of different groups. All of you guys control. Nothing can get added or removed. No changes could be made unless you all agree on it. That way, no one's going to sneak influence in, right? And everyone had to agree, not a majority. That way, you couldn't have like a few people that agreed on one thing, team up on some people who didn't agree on something else, right? Anyway, as a result of this, there's a very famous ladder that has been in the same spot. Roughly, it's been moved a couple times. But basically, there's a ladder leaning up against the wall because when the official ruling was given, said everything has to stay the way it is right now. Nothing can be changed without a vote. And the ladder remains as a symbol of how difficult it is to get anything changed and how they refuse to change things. But either way, I wonder if that little simple anecdote or story will be relevant here. Maybe not. Maybe all 5 of these groups will be like, hey, man, we got some good things going on here. Let's not screw them up. But I have to imagine, maybe the Seminole Nation wants more land, right? Maybe they're like, what the hell, dude? That treaty sucked for us. It's awesome. I mean, you know, it's just natural. It's normal. It's what happens when stuff like this happens. Also, it's maybe, I don't know. I don't get into some of the geographic stuff. I don't know a ton about the geography. Because I'm an American. Like all Americans, I have the geography knowledge of a 5-year-old. But it is the other interesting wrinkle to me here. I just realized. I wonder if that's the hope here. That's not going to go anywhere. Because also, it's like what happens if, like how about this? What happens if the U.S. government makes a treaty with a tribe, but then another tribe steps forward and says, hey, their treaty's baloney. They signed a treaty giving up land that wasn't theirs in exchange for more land that wasn't theirs. That was all our land. What do you do then? It's one of the reasons why I feel like there should be a different way of bringing up questions like this. And it shouldn't just be the Supreme Court makes a ruling. But there's probably more going on here, right? People aren't all crazy or stupid. Sometimes things are just, obfuscated, so to speak. Google Alderman Lopez Chicago. $2 super chat from my melanated scope. I believe we looked something like this guy before. Let me see. Sorry. My Google's not loading. Not pulling stuff up. But yeah. Either way, also I had to admit, never been to Oklahoma. Maybe I'll go one day visit Oklahoma. But it's hard for me to say at the same time what things are like in Oklahoma or shouldn't be like. Man. Just won't load. Alrighty, so, anyway, probably going to be wrapping up a little bit here, guys. Sorry, we've been going a little bit shorter the last couple days, but it's because Cardin isn't here, and I got to admit, some of the stuff in the news, just, like, seriously, it's like Ghislaine Maxwell might kill herself, and we gave away half Oklahoma. It's welcome to Thursday, right? It's like, it's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. I mean, we truly live in the times of today, huh? Who can ever say we don't live in the times of now, right? My Melody Scope, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. He's the one that got into a yelling war with the mayor and said F you to her. He's not very... I know that, yes, exactly. It's interesting to see. Now, for one thing I will say as well, not in defense of the mayor of Chicago, but just in reference to the mayor of Chicago, it seems to be whoever the mayor of Chicago is hated, distrusted, disliked, and fights with... Maybe not the same way, but if I remember right, didn't the mayor before Lightfoot like step down or resign and like shame or something bad happened? And then Mayor Lightfoot got, I guess, in a screaming match on a phone call with her local community politicians because she was doing nothing to help them and doing a lot to protect downtown. How to put this? I think that's a trend you might see in other places like Chicago, a few big cities, right? But I do think in a few big cities, some of the bigger leadership, like mayor level, is just getting out of hand, and people who actually live in the neighborhoods and like represent areas, like aldermen, for example, are a great example of this, who live and see the results of it, are just probably going to get very upset and tired of it. You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, enough of this. Like they hear the BS lip service from the politicians and then watch the policies damage their communities. They're like, the hell with this. You guys in downtown don't see what happens. It's easy for you to say we're helping, but how you don't live in these neighborhoods? They do, and they realize they're not helping. It makes it worse for us. We hate this. Which, yeah, it's gonna keep happening. But, maybe one day those big brains up at City Hall will finally get it right. They'll put the right numbers in the machine and they'll end all of our problems. And we'll all get together and we'll put our hands together and say, thank you, politicians, for your big brains. You're truly a gift to all of us. And let's not forget the media and their bigger brains for guiding the politicians to bring to us. I have an idea. Every Sunday, we'll get together in various buildings throughout the country, and we'll sing songs, and we'll be merry, and we'll speak of how much we love and cherish the big brains in the media and in the government. And as we sing our songs and wave our hands, we'll say, thank you, big brains, for writing the opinion pieces. Thank you, big brains, for writing the bills that have improved our lives so very much. And then we'll pass a bowl around, and we'll all put money in the bowl. And then that money will go to the government because we appreciate it so much for everything it does for us. And again, those big brains, they're just so smart. Maybe that's what we should do. Maybe, you know what? Maybe the reason why the big brains in the government and the media, maybe the reason why they don't improve our life is because we wronged them somehow. We have not pleased them. Maybe they need gifts. Maybe they need blessings. I mean, to receive their blessings, maybe we just need to give them gifts. I don't know what kind of gift. Maybe you like animals? Maybe people. I don't know. What should we do? What do we have to do to not upset the big brains that rule us? They're so powerful and so important. I don't know. Anyway, Stephen Absher, $5. Are we still talking about the Dark Horse duo as a possibility? I'm sure you've talked about it already, but opinion. As a possibility, specifically Andrew Yang and General McRaven, I would say zero possibility. However, long term, the idea of... Excuse me, one second. There we go. But long term, or even shorter term, 2024, the idea of the interest and the demand of regular people rising for legitimate third party or a choice outside of Democrat or Republican, that thread I think is worth following. The actual individual Dark Horse duo, I just don't think it's going to happen. Too many reasons why I wouldn't. But the idea of in 2024 seeing us inch closer to some sort of legitimate, third. Now, if I remember correctly, wasn't it the communists that had that phrase, third positionists, right? Or something like that? Like, you'll notice that there's a lot of people that will always resist the breaking of the dichotomy, right? like right now, American politics is right and left, blue and red, Democrat, Republican. Breaking that threatens people, so that's weird. But yeah, that's my most of my thoughts on that. Yeah. Someone brought up an interesting point, though. See, that I think the corporations figured out how to please the big brains already. It's gifts of money and influence. If you come bearing, gifts of gold, the big brains will grant upon you their blessings. Which, hey, you gotta admit, pretty easy. It makes sense. They just want money. If you feed them enough money, they will then grant you their blessing. Yeah, maybe the birthday party will be that party. But no, it's just that's really the actual, like, in all seriousness, of the there of the, not like Darko's duo, right? But I'm very interested to see a rise of a potential third party in America. Again, I think there's way too many people too invested and too tied to the two party system we have now that to let it go. I don't think they'll just let it go. Boop. Sorry. Got distracted reading the chat for a minute there. Let's see. What time is it? 6:10. Okay. So I'll go 10 more minutes. It'll be 6:20 p.m. Normal time. I don't know what time it is where you live, but it'd be 6:20 p.m. normal time in 10 minutes where I live. Sorry, as a sports fan, I'll always be very protective of my time zone. But yeah, crazy world, guys. Whether it's Oklahoma being given away, Ghislaine Maxwell being a super user on Reddit, which, you know what, I want to start seeing more of that. I've read enough of Ghislaine Maxwell, alleged, pimp, or alleged Maxwell, or alleged accomplice Epstein, alleged madame. Get rid of that. Now, people should start printing Ghislaine Maxwell, alleged Reddit super user. I think that's more interesting, right? I guess, you know what? There's one story about Ghislaine Maxwell I have not brought up yet. I Spy brought it up. He said, where is her mugshot? Her being Ghislaine Maxwell? I believe that is the story going around. Why isn't a mugshot of her if she actually got arrested? I don't know. Maybe they got her with the old Saddam treatment, huh? Or the not Saddam, the old Bin Laden treatment. Remember that? They just been like, oh yeah, we killed what's his name? And then Bin Laden, and he just we threw him in the ocean, One of those things. Maybe that'll happen. It'll be like, we arrested Maxine Waters. Whoops, found her dead in her jail cell. One of those things. It's a good point. Same time, coronavirus. Who knows, man? Sorry, I'm just my watch, I believe, just finally died on me. I've had this watch about a decade, and it's finally just crapped out. Sad day. I'll have to get a new one. I think I paid $12 for it, though, so that's okay. I mean, yeah, Biden, and honestly, it's weird. It's hard to even talk about Joe Biden. I've been trying to, but it's like, Joe Biden, man. Like, Joe Biden truly exists as the option for people who just don't like Donald Trump. Basically what he is. It's basically the, like, if you don't like Trump and you want to vote for someone else, it's Joe Biden. Like, he doesn't do enough else. He hasn't really said a lot. He hasn't done anything. Oh, my melanated scope. $2 for a new Casio. Thank you very much, man. I very much appreciate it. Will I react to the George Carlin Big Club? I'll watch it. I'll try to watch it before I start stream one day and bring it up during the stream. I can't actually run anything on YouTube where they'll just they'll do something. Yeah, Joshua heard about the notion of the Humanity First email list being sent over to have Joe Biden jump for money. Which, yeah, here's the thing though. This is what's funny too, right? Guarantee you, anyone donating money to BLM using an ActBlue link, I guarantee you they're getting emails hitting them up for money for Joe Biden. I'm not one of those people who think ActBlue is evil, but if you don't want to give money, if you want to give money to something that isn't the Democrat Party, then don't go through ActBlue. Because that's where it all goes to, and that's where the email lists go to. It's where it all funnels to. Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? But if you want to donate to a specific charity and maybe just do business with a specific charity, not a political party, anyone that goes out, one of the reasons why, it's a very smart website. It's why it works very well. It's a great idea. It's payment processing. They basically do the same thing, Amazon would do, right? Where when you have one email, one login, I don't have to always bring my credit card out and put my thing in and, donate $5 today. And you click and it's let me get my wallet. What's my number? But hey, when it's you're already logged into ActBlue. Anyway, that does happen. So yeah, what's the last thing we talk about? Last thing we should bring up. Yeah. I heard you say, Joshua, that it was from Humanity Forward's email list. No, I've gotten that stuff too, but I just mean, yeah, I've gotten similar emails. I've donated to other things through Act Blue, and I just get emails where I'm like, it's weird. It's weird I'm suddenly getting emailed for this now, but. One thing I will say about the Andrew Yang, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a campaign anymore, but like the Yang's like posse or not posse. What's the word to put for it? I don't know what it is. Like the campaign today. A lot of the people that were from his campaign that are still in his influence today, right? Or still remain in his group today. Yeah, it is weird to see kind of the way they went. Like it is weird. Like I don't know. Like what is Zach Grumman and Andrew Yang obviously still work very closely together, but it's like I don't know. This is kind of weird, but it's what happens, you know. Finish running for president, and what do you do after that? I guess everything else kind of just feels like a bit of a downer after running for president. But now, yeah, I see a lot of them just kind of, like, you know, I think of Andrew Yang mostly now as like a media figure. It's like a media personality, you know? So, yeah, it is what it is, though. I haven't looked. I honestly haven't listened to his podcast, but full disclosure, there's no podcast I listen to, so it's not like I devote 5 hours a day to political podcasts, and it's like Yang just doesn't quite make the cut. It's like I don't actually listen to any audio podcasts. I don't know why. I just never am able to. I've tried to start many. I've never been able to get any to go. But I think it's doing pretty good. But still, it's like that's just kind of how I think of Yang now. Now, what he does with that, if he could parlay that into something like mayor of New York City, from there maybe you could jump back into the political mix. But I wonder, there's part of me that wonders if Andrew Yang will just kind of remain more of a media figure, if he kind of likes that spot. I don't know, I really don't. But he signed with an agency, he goes to CNN a lot, he like writing op-eds and stuff. I mean, he's becoming a media figure. Yeah, I saw that. Michael Guzman brought up that they had him in like a history. Like that's what I mean. It's like Andrew Yang is like just, and I think they had him on History Channel as like just entrepreneur. He's just kind of like a guy in the political media sphere. Oh, Fred the Felon, what's up, dude? The DNC convention now canceled because of Corona. I have a feeling both the DNC and the RNC conventions are probably going to move to be mostly remote. Not canceled, but move to be mostly remote, if not entirely. I think that's what's going to end up happening. Because I believe the DNC already did move theirs around, and I think the Republicans just had theirs kicked out of Houston or something. So they're probably both going to have to go almost all entirely remote. That's my guess. I can't give you the data. My guess is they might have to end up doing that. Oh, okay. So Josh first, he listened to all of the Yang Speaks or Yang podcasts, but the one with David Axelrod was trash. Well, it's because the one with David Axelrod is basically just, probably party talking points. There's a few. I want to look at the Mark Cuban one, but it's like, I don't know. It's like I don't watch any like interview style podcasts. I really don't. Because I guess I'll be honest. I do listen to old podcasts. Old, like not even that old, but I'll listen to clips of wrestling podcasts on YouTube. Just full disclosure, I will do that. I've listened to a couple of his episodes. I just don't listen to podcasts. Like there's never a time where I turn a podcast on. Except for sometimes on YouTube, clips from wrestling podcasts will come on and I'll be like, I kind of want to hear what they have to say. That's about it. Look at, we'll wrap up on this. Yeah, wrap up on this. Oh, yeah, I didn't know we did one with JJ Redick. I definitely want to listen to Andrew Yang. But here's the thing. Am I interested in hearing Andrew Yang and JJ Redick talk? Yeah, sure. Will I think to look that up before other things just get put in front of my face on my computer? Probably not. Anyway. Someone says, what are the implications now that people are forced to be more educated in Econ 101 and stop skipping chapter 1 through 3. So I'm not exactly 1,000% sure with you, but I think I understand what I'm trying to say here. And okay, I will. Sorry, and again, I will go back and rewatch Joe Rogan, Alex Jones reruns of those 2 or 3 podcasts they did. Very just electric stuff. But I definitely think there's a problem with the economy's moved in how the average person needs to function in it, and that there hasn't been a change in education on that, if that's what you mean. Because that is something I do think is really interesting, is the idea of, like, there's so many people who are, like, most young people, when they're getting out to, like, adulthood, into the workforce, and into the world of engaging in the economy, they have no idea what it does and how it works for them. And it's weird. It's like something school could prep you for better. I agree on that. It's like they're just kind of like, well, go out there. And it's like, what the hell? What's all this stuff? But here's the problem with anything in the public school system is so much of the public school system is people trying to get their influence in. That's the curriculum, unfortunately. Everything's like that. Various groups, various interests want their interests more covered, and then so education gets knocked down. Stuff like econ, like business, econ 101, or even just like finance, all that stuff just gets buried. Nah, we got no time for it. We got a bunch of people whose interests need to be validated in the curriculum. So we don't have time for this, that, and that, and this. I legitimately do not know what you do about that. You know what I mean? Like, I legitimately don't know what we do about that. Just tell people enough. It's not what the schools are for. Schools are not for getting people's interests legitimized through curriculum. I don't know. I don't think you could do that. I mean, I don't think anyone would listen to that. So that's what, they would get around it. So that's what you have. You have kids' curriculum, unfortunately, becoming political pawns for random aspiring nobody, but that's what frustrates me too. So it's I don't want to, you know what? Forget it. I'm not going to get into it. But yeah, it's just it's legitimately a problem, right? Some things are just problems. I don't know how you solve it. I don't know how you solve actual practical knowledge getting bumped for, interests, really. I don't know a better way of describing it. We think people should learn more about this. Like you'll notice none of the things that get passed is kids need to learn more about the stock market. No, that never gets passed. Why? Well, because the stock market's for rich people, not you dumb morons in public school. That's why. I wish they would just come out and say it, really. Yeah, economy, that's where people can afford to send their kids to schools. They don't have public curriculums. Public curriculums, you get to learn how to be a good, obedient one. You get to know how to interact with people, and you get to know what you're allowed to do. But like actually having useful skills, that costs real money. You got to go to real schools for that. It's almost like again, I referenced a lot of stuff. It's almost like video games where it's like, sure, you could have the free to play garbage experience if you're like a peasant, but if you want the real experience with the real features, you got to pay extra money. You know? Yeah, we provide everyone with the peasant experience. But if you want to like actually like have your kids learn skills that will legitimately benefit them, that costs you a bit more. You're going to have to pay for that. You're going to have to go elsewhere. We don't provide that here. It's not our job. Our job is to provide daycare and make sure your kids are normalized in society, basically. It's the job of schools nowadays. Make sure your kids aren't like freaks and like that they're fed and somebody watched them for a few hours. Anything beyond that, man, hey, that's on you. But hey, it's just, again, it's a problem. I don't know what you do about it. Maybe I wish they were a little bit more transparent with it, though. I wish they did say, I wish like there was an acknowledging of like, yep, the way public school curriculum works, hey, it's not the most conducive for actually educating kids and getting them turned into the workforce ready to work. It really isn't. And workforce ready to work's the wrong word, sorry. That's what it is for. It's not for getting people out into the real world ready to engage with it just based off schooling alone. colleges will even say as much, right? If you're coming from private school, if you're coming from a public school, colleges will be like, okay, what's all your extracurriculum stuff? Because that school's a joke and it's crap, it's garbage. They don't say it out loud, but they kind of imply it. So yeah. Clearly, definitely bothers me. Definitely something that bothers me. The way the school systems work in this country. Because I mean, you can see it, man. People have political arguments over like literally like how should political ideology be funneled to kids through public school. They won't have as passionate of an argument as how can we make sure kids don't end up in debt so much. It feels like young people just end up in a lot of debt way too often. How do we, Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is there potentially a link between understanding finances, personal finance, debt, the way things like that work, and maybe a decrease in the amount of students willing to take loans to go to school? I don't know. Probably not, right? If you taught kids more about personal finance and how debt works and compounding interest and interest in general, right? If we did more of a job focusing on making sure kids fully understand how to take care of themselves there, I'm sure that would have zero impact on the amount of kids who take loans they can't default on to go to school for degrees they aren't sure what they want to major in yet. I'm sure it would just work the same. They'd probably have the same amount of customers. Again, man, if you don't want the peasant experience, you got to get off the free-to-play system, I guess. It's infuriating the way they like. It's almost like the school system treats everyone like just suckers. The public school systems, Either way, tell you what, you can argue it this way. You want a real lesson in interest in debt? Find yourself $80,000 in debt for loans for a degree you didn't get or you don't want. You'll learn a lot about interest in debt then, huh? Look at that. A little longer than I was planning on, because I'm legitimately upset with how stuff works, man. It bothers me so much. They screw people. They screw kids. They screw families. They screw all of them. But don't worry. Do not worry. The political imagery and messaging we gave your kids was good. It was the right one. School was the most tolerable experience possible for your children. Oh my God, man. You know they had a ruling. I was going to talk about this yesterday, but I didn't. They had a ruling that came out not too long ago. It was news. It was just a while ago. You hear that there's certain cities that are like getting rid of their school resource officers as part of the Abolish the Police movement. Well, it appears the Supreme Court already ruled that school resource officers are under no obligation to protect the lives of any of the students, even if they're literally students at school under threat of bodily harm. They have no obligation to do anything. None. That came up when the Parkland... No, they couldn't sue Parkland Sheriff for the Sheriff Department for the guy standing down for certain. They could, but they could sue them, but they couldn't say, "Oh, you're obligated to defend the kids." No, they're not. Police aren't obligated. Police aren't even obligated to respond to calls. They could just say, "Not for us, not that one," or they could say, "We drove by, it looked fine." So now it's like you send your kid to public school thinking like, well, they have police and stuff to protect them. No, they won't. They might. If you're lucky, they might think about it. They don't have to. But I wonder then, right? Is the government under any obligation to make sure that your kids do anything other than get the base results in the tests they need them to get to pass through the school, right? Like, if you could pass high school and still be functionally a moron, hey, you passed, man. People agreed in the curriculum, and you completed it all and passed. That's our job. So, there we go. That's that. We'll have to do one day. Or we'll pull up some more stuff and I'll just rag on the school systems and the nonsense they do. But it's just every argument you hear about what kids are taught in schools, it's always political based. It's just insulting to me. People can have those arguments, whatever. But I don't think it's why we send kids to schools. The state would disagree, though. It almost feels like the state, and some people who like side with the state in this issue, feel like it is the school's job to basically just mold you socially. And you know what also is a great thing for schools? Which they do, by the way, all the time. One of the things schools are, not primary function, but one of the things schools do, it helps them isolate potential problem individuals. So they want to make sure your kids are there. They have counselors, right? All of a sudden, right? You have a kid acting out of line. Looks like that one might be an issue for our society in a few years. Just get their name in some documents, a permanent record, so to speak, stuff like that. Get you in the system immediately. Anyway. This will be the last one. We're at wrap up here. Joshua, her $5 super chat. Thank you very much, man. Can you and Carden do an episode on data privacy and take a look at experience data sets? Yeah, that's a good. I'll keep a note of that one. It's a good topic as well. I've been meaning to maybe try doing more stuff, less on news and more on just things going on around right now. That's a good one. Did I enjoy my birthday? Yeah, for a coronavirus lockdown birthday, it was fun. I would have rather gone out and done more, but lockdown, coronavirus, what you gonna do? Well, I think the bigger thing, and I'll wrap up here, last comment I'll make on this. I think the bigger thing is just society needs to decide what it is public school's for. Is public school just a place to watch my kids, feed them, and make sure that they walk out of there able to function in society on just like a social level? Or is it to educate people? Because those aren't the same things. You can have people walking out of schools that understand the numbers and they know like how to do things that just never really got an idea of what the world is going to be like for them socially when they get out. You don't want that. But at the same time, you don't want a school system that only serves to make sure your kids know how to say the right things, walk the right way, talk the right way, dress the right way, look at people the right way, but they're not any smarter than perhaps they were 4 years before they graduated. You don't want that to happen either. Well, you know what? I'll wrap up on one more funny story with that. I didn't, on my birthday itself, didn't really do anything in particular, but I went to visit my grandparents for my birthday, and I had dinner with them a couple days ago. And like I said, I'm planning to go out of town for a few days beginning of next week, kind of for my birthday. So there's that. But this last funny story, my little personal story wrap up on this, though. Just as far as how the school system works, I love this. I think I told the story before, but I'll just wrap it up. So a bunch of my friends were stupid, and they're my friends. Of course they'd be stupid. I'm stupid. But anyway, one of my friends got caught. You know what? Not even like, let's not even phrase that. Individual I knew in high school was legally an adult, over the age of 18. It was after school, not on school grounds. However, a school resource officer was one of the people that detained him. And as far as a bunch of other people, some of them were students under the age of 18. Anyway, long story short, this legal adult over the age of 18, who was off school grounds, not during school hours, was actually suspended from school for a legal issue they had that had basically nothing to do with school. So that's how the schools look at you, is my point, though. They look at it as that's you in the system, right? You commit a crime, they'll punish you through your school. It's crazy, man. But they look at it as that's you already in the system. That's why I talk school to prison pipeline, because it's not even. It's just you're in the government system. It's almost like as a punishment for being bad, they put you back in it. It's like, we'll let you out. You have to be in our system until you're 18. And they really encourage you to stay in the system until you're, 22, 24, go to college. But then you're out, and you better be good. If you mess up, we're putting you back in. It's going to be worse this time. But yeah, it's you know. But there's also the rosier side of it, which is that they're able to use schools as points of service to distribute services to the community. The state can. They can do both. Either way, I keep saying this, but for real, I'm wrapping up now, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Tomorrow's Friday, so I don't know if Cardin will be back tomorrow, and then after that, be just me tomorrow night. I believe maybe Cardin, can't guarantee it. Probably not. Maybe. I don't know. And then Monday, I will be on. Tuesday, I'll be on. Wednesday, I'll be gone. And you'll have Cardin with you guys those days. So, once again, just thank you everyone for joining. And hope you guys have a great rest of your night. And if you are here tomorrow, have a great weekend, everybody.